It's time we talked a little bit about passwords. We all have password problems. Everybody's got them. We've got too many passwords, and too often we make them hard to remember but easy for a computer to guess. And we're going to see what I mean by that in this section. If you'll remember, on the section on Windows 7 hacking, we saw that we could dump the password hash file from that computer, the encoded versions of all the passwords on that Windows 7 computer, once we compromise that computer using Metasploit and Meterpreter. In this section, we're going to see how to crack passwords, how passwords get hacked, hijacked, and what I'll call snacked. But the common thing that we all have when it comes to our passwords is that passwords are filled with problems. First of all, we have social engineering. We saw that with the phishing attack, all it took was just a simple email saying that your account's been hacked, or there's a picture posted of you that you don't want up there, or hey, I need some help, click through this really fast, and someone can phish your password no matter how complex, how elegant, how perfect your password is. If you give up that username and password to someone through a phishing attempt, or from them calling and saying, hey, this is IT, I need to log in with your password to fix something, you have lost everything. You've lost complete access. You've given access to someone else. There's also something I call snacking, and I just do that because it rhymes with hacking, hijacking, and cracking. But if you've ever looked around someone's workstation before, you may see Post-it notes with passwords. That one is actually a pretty good one. JDO1 has a password of I hate passwords, IH8. P@SSW0RDS exclamation. That's not a terrible password. What's terrible is it was just complex enough that they had to write it down and they stuck it on their monitor. That's a terrible way to handle your passwords, especially putting the username right with it. Usernames are easy enough to guess without putting it down on a piece of paper. But if your passwords are so complex that you have to write them down, you might be doing it wrong. Even if you've got a decent password, we saw in the very first example, the very first section in this ethical hacking course, that physical access can overwrite our password. So if we give someone access to our computer and they can pop in a Windows 10 DVD and boot that computer a couple of times with the special key combinations and just about 4 commands, they can overwrite our password and give us a completely new password, or they can create a whole new user account, make them an administrator on the computer, and they don't even need our password. They can see most of our files if we don't have them encrypted. So all the way back in section 1, we saw that passwords can get hacked with physical access. We saw in the section on phishing that people can steal our passwords through a phishing website if we're not really careful where we enter our usernames and passwords. If we write our passwords down and leave them on a Post-it note stuck to the monitor, that's just about the worst case that you can have. But I'm going to show you a few techniques in this section that will both show you how people hack passwords, hijack and crack passwords, and how you can keep your passwords safer. So in this very first hands-on application, we're going to hijack some passwords. We're going to reveal passwords stored in a browser. If you ever store your passwords in your browser, if you tell the browser to remember those passwords, you need to know that those passwords are susceptible to hijacking. I'm going to show you how we can change just one character in the source code for the web page while it's live on the screen and display those passwords. So be very careful. If you ever have a browser remember your passwords for you, you need to make sure it's a computer that only you have physical access to. Never do this at work, at school, at the airport, at an internet cafe, at a library. Wherever you enter your password and tell the browser to remember it, you've as good as given that password to even a moderately skilled hacker. And you're going to see how to reveal those passwords coming up in the next lesson.